So today is Monday of Holy Week, and yesterday we celebrated Palm Sunday, where we remembered Jesus' triumphant entry into Jerusalem. The crowds of people celebrated his arrival, and in the ancient Near East it was customary to cover the floor in some way and to cover the path of someone who was thought to be worthy of any high honour. And so they laid down their cloaks and palm branches, somewhat similar to the way that we would lay down a red carpet for the visit of a VIP. And they welcomed Jesus with singing and shouts of Hosanna, saying, "Blessed is he who comes in the name of the Lord. Hosanna in the highest," words from Psalm 118. But Jesus didn't arrive in great style like that of a red carpet reception. He arrived on the back of a donkey. And the donkey itself, according to Eastern tradition, is an animal of peace. The horse would have been seen as an animal of power and even war, and a king may have ridden a horse into battle or a donkey to symbolise his arrival in peace. And so Jesus arrived in Jerusalem on the back of a donkey, and that would have symbolised his intent to arrive not as a warmongering king, but as the Prince of Peace. But today, as we journey closer to the events of Good Friday, the tone begins to change and the mood changes. The Gospels tell us of some of the events that occurred on that day, as well as Jesus' teaching using various parables. Some of the most notable events include the cursing of the fig tree, which is why today is also known as Fig Monday, and also the questioning of Jesus' authority. These can be found in the Gospel according to Matthew chapter 21, which I'm going to read now. In the morning, when Jesus returned to the city, he was hungry, and seeing a fig tree by the side of the road, he went to it and found nothing at all on it but leaves. Then he said to it, "May no fruit ever come from you again." And the fig tree withered at once. When the disciples saw it, they were amazed, saying, "How did the fig tree wither at once?" Jesus answered them, "Truly I tell you, if you have faith and do not doubt, not only will you do what has been done to the fig tree, but even if you say to this mountain, 'Be lifted up and thrown into the sea,' it will be done. Whatever you ask for in prayer with faith, you will receive." When he entered the temple, the chief priests and the elders of the people came to him as he was teaching and said, "By what authority are you doing these things? And who gave you this authority?" Jesus said to them, "I will also ask you one question. If you tell me the answer, then I will also tell you by what authority I do these things. Did the baptism of John come from heaven, or was it of human origin?" And they argued with one another. "If we say from heaven, he will say to us, 'Why then did you not believe him?' But if we say of human origin, we are afraid of the crowd, for all regard John as a prophet." So they answered Jesus, "We do not know." And he said to them, "Neither will I tell you by what authority I am doing these things." So just one day after Jesus' entry into Jerusalem on a donkey, one day after Jesus received a VIP welcome, his authority is questioned, and we take one step closer to the events of Good Friday. Oh, how quickly things can change. Today, we find ourselves still isolated due to the coronavirus pandemic. We find ourselves in a changed world. It's a difficult time for many of us. It's a dark time for many of us. Life has changed for a while, but we are assured that all this will come to an end. Social distancing will come to an end. Self-isolation will come to an end. We don't know when it will end, but we do know that it will end. But life has been changed for a while. But the events that we remember this week Jesus' entry into Jerusalem, the questioning of Jesus' authority, his condemnation, crucifixion, death, and finally his resurrection changed life forever. So although today marks a change in mood as we move away from the shouts of Hosanna and closer to the shouts of Crucify him, we remain rooted in the hope that Jesus' death and resurrection offers us, because Jesus changed my life forever, and he's also changed your life forever. Because as Christians, we believe that it is through Jesus' resurrection and through his death that our broken relationship with God was restored. This year, Easter is likely to be very different from any that we have experienced as we remain isolated from our communities. Yet in a few days' time, we will celebrate Easter in whatever way we can. But not quite yet. Today, we continue to wait in a changed world and a changing world. Today, we would take one step closer to Good Friday, worried, anxious, and maybe even frightened by the events that are unfolding all around us. But we know how Holy Week ends. We know that despite Jesus' authority being questioned, and despite Jesus being condemned and killed on a cross, his authority was made clear when he was raised from the dead on that first Easter morning. So although we find ourselves in a strange time at the moment, we acknowledge the darkness in the world, but we keep our eyes fixed on the times ahead of the darkness, on the times beyond the darkness. So if you find yourself in a place of darkness at this time, remember that Jesus said, "I am the light of the world. Whoever follows me will not walk in darkness, but will have the light of life." Remember too that God is available to each and every one of us through prayer, just as a good friend is available on the phone 24/7. As a church, we are still here, even though our church buildings are closed. And if you would like someone to pray for you, then you can get in touch with us. But if you want to reach out to God in prayer yourself, you can do that too. Tell God how you feel. Ask God for help. Ask God for strength in your times of darkness. Because Jesus' death and resurrection restored the relationship between God and humankind, so that regardless of where we are, we can pray. And as the gospel reading I read earlier reminds us, whatever we ask for in prayer with faith, we will receive. Amen.